wonderful turnout. Thank you so much, New York City, for coming out. We appreciate it. You all know I was born in another world called Brooklyn. And let me introduce my wife, Jane. My son Dave. Wife Liza. And two of my 7 beautiful grandchildren, Ella and Dylan. That is what this campaign is about for these kids and every kid in America. That's what we want to do. Let me thank Jerome Thompson Jr. for talking about what is in fact going on in the lives of millions of working people who are being battered down every single day, while the CEOs enjoy huge compensation packages. While companies are enjoying huge profits, they are attacking workers, and together we're going to end that. And I want to thank Mark Ruffalo. Not only for his work on progressive issues for so many years, but his focus on climate change and the environment. Mark, thank you very much. I want to thank you for being here for a number of reasons. You are looking at one of the very few presidential candidates who does not have a super PAC, does not want a super PAC. As Jerome just told you, I do not represent the interest of corporate America or the billionaire class. I don't want their money. So these are the kind of fundraisers we do. We don't have a small room of people who contribute $1 million apiece. Many of you contributed $50, many of you don't have a lot of money. We appreciate it, and that's the people-oriented campaign we are running. Some of you may have had the misfortune, as I did the other night, of watching the Republican debate. And it was amazing. I was tweeting during it, and the energy was just leaving my body. And I couldn't take it anymore. After 2.5 hours, I threw away the tweet and walked out the door. But here's what was important, and it's important to say this. That in their 3-hour discussion, some of the most important issues facing the American people were not discussed at all. It is like a parallel universe. And I think why our campaign is doing well, why it's doing a lot better than people anticipated, is in fact we are talking about the issues the American people want to hear. I cannot understand how, in a 3-hour debate, there was virtually no discussion of the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in America today. I cannot understand how in a 3-hour debate, no discussion about the need to end institutional racism and at a time when our country has more people in jail than any other country on earth, the need for real criminal justice reform. Yes, there was some debate about climate change. There were those who denied it and those who said there's nothing we should do about it, despite the fact that the scientists who have studied the issue are virtually unanimous in telling us that this is a planetary crisis which must be addressed immediately. Despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, 30 million Americans remain today without any health insurance. More are underinsured, and the only discussion Republicans could bring up was to end the Affordable Care Act and throw millions more off of health insurance. At a time when hundreds of thousands of bright young people in New York City, in Vermont, all over this country, kids who have the ability, kids who have the desire, want to go to college, but cannot go to college for one reason: their family lacks income. Republicans have nothing to say about the need to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Most amazingly, after 3 hours, these guys did not have one word to say about the corrupt campaign finance system we are living under today. Now, I didn't hear one of them suggest that maybe something is wrong when billionaires are buying politicians right and left. I didn't hear one of them say that maybe, just maybe, we've got to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court. I did not hear them talk about overturning Citizens United because virtually all of them are receiving their campaign funds from the wealthiest people in this country. I did hear a lot of discussion about immigration and the great debate as to how high each one of them would build the wall, reaching to the stars. But despite the fact that the majority of the American people understand that we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship, not one of them had the courage to talk about that. Now, the middle class of America is disappearing. We have over 45 million people in this country living in poverty. Almost all of the new wealth and income being created is going to the top 1%. I didn't hear any of them talk about the need for real tax reform, to tell large multinational corporations they're not going to continue to put their profits in the Cayman Islands and avoid paying taxes to this country. Now, call me a cynic, but maybe it has something to do with the fact that these corporations and the CEOs are funding their campaigns. I didn't hear one Republican up there make the point that the United States of America today is the only major country on earth, the only one, that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave to working families. That the United States is the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid sick leave and paid vacation time to working people. Now, I did hear some brilliant discussion on Social Security, I did. And Donald Trump, who is worth billions, has volunteered not to take his Social Security, which will clearly address the Social Security issue. But the truth is that many of the candidates up there, not all, but most of them, and most Republicans in Congress believe that at a time when millions of seniors and people with disabilities are trying to get by on $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year, think about it. You are old, you are sick. Try to think about how you heat your home in the winter, you buy food, you buy your medicine on $12,000, $13,000 a year. I do not know how people can do that. And their solution is to cut Social Security. I did hear one of them say, well, maybe we should expand Social Security benefits. And we can do that by lifting the cap on taxable income right now. It's a bit absurd that a multi-millionaire contributes the same amount into Social Security Trust Fund as somebody making $118,000 a year. And that's got to change. Now, in my view, the Republican Party has an agenda which is basically a fringe agenda, representing maybe 5, 10, 15% of the American people. You go out to any community in America, you go out to the most conservative states in America, and you say to people, hey, do you think it is a good idea that we give tax breaks to billionaires, which is exactly what the Republican budget proposes, and at the same time cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, environmental protection? And what Americans across the board will say to you, they'll look you in the eye and say, are you nuts? That is the Republican agenda. That is the Republican agenda. Now, how do these guys win elections? All right, how do they win elections? Mark my words. Mark my words. You will not see an ad, a 30-second ad in New York or any other state, which says, vote for me. I want to give a tax break to billionaires and cut your Social Security. I would appreciate your support. Ain't gonna happen. So how do they win elections? How do they win elections? I'll tell you how they win elections. For decades now, they have been dividing our people up. They have been dividing white from black, straight from gay, men from women, people born in this country from people who are not born in this country. And brothers and sisters, what our job is to do exactly what the opposite of what the Republicans do. They're trying to divide us. Our job is to bring our people together. The best way that I know how to do that is to bring people together around an agenda that makes sense to working families. And let me give you a few ideas as to what that agenda should be. Obviously, the economy today is a hell of a lot better than it was when Bush left office. And wasn't it amazing in that debate that every problem in the whole wide world is attributable to Barack Obama? Every problem, mosquito flying around, it's Obama. Too cold, too hot, it's raining, it's Obama. And they forgot to tell us, I don't know how it slipped their minds. They forgot to remember that when Bush left office, we were hemorrhaging 800,000 jobs a month. When Bush left office, the American and world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. And these guys who worry so much about deficits just slipped their mind that when Bush left office, we had the largest deficit in the history of America, $1.4 trillion. Now I know, just slipped their mind, we all forget things. And all of the problems of Barack Obama's, but we know a little bit different. And we know that while we are growing a couple of 100,000 jobs a month, hell of a lot better than losing 800,000, it ain't good enough. It ain't good enough. And we know that it is too late for establishment economics and establishment politics. We need some bold action to protect the working family. Let me give you a few ideas. Give you a few ideas. The truth is, every month, as you know, the government comes out with some statistics on unemployment. Come out with a variety of statistics. One is what they call the official unemployment rate, which is now about 5.1%. But there is another statistic that doesn't get a whole lot of attention. And that deals with people who are unemployed, people who have given up looking for work, and people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. Add that together, real unemployment is over 10%. Second point, and one that is very, very rarely talked about. And one of the joys about running for President of the United States, you can force discussion about issues that others prefer not to talk about. Huge issue that almost gets no discussion at all. I asked some economists in D.C., the Economic Policy Institute, to do a study for me. And the question was, what is real youth unemployment in America? Youth unemployment. This is what they came back. They said if kids are white between the ages of 17 and 20 and high school graduates, their real unemployment rate, 33%. Kids are Hispanic, 36%. For African American kids who graduated high school, I'm not talking about dropouts, who graduated high school between the ages of 17 and 20, Real unemployment is 51%. Now, when you got real unemployment in the general population of over 10%, when you got youth unemployment of 30, 40, 50%, it doesn't take a PhD in economics to know we need a massive jobs program to put our people back to work. And the other thing that you don't need a PhD to see is our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, our airports, water systems, wastewater plants are crumbling. When you got mass unemployment and you got a crumbling infrastructure, let's create millions of jobs rebuilding our roads and bridges. Here's a crazy and wild idea. Maybe instead of firing teachers and child care workers and firemen and cops, maybe we hire more of the people that we need. When we talk about the economy, let's talk about income and wealth inequality. Let's put it on the table. And let's ask the people in this country whether they think it is moral, whether they think it is right that the top 1/10 of 1% own almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Let's ask the American people whether they think it's right that 58% of all new income generated now is going to the top 1%. Together, we are going to address this issue of income and wealth inequality. When we talk about the economy, let's put another issue on the table that we don't talk about enough. And that is the fact that millions of our brothers and sisters are working at jobs where the wages are just too damn low. And let's be clear. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We need to raise it to a living wage. And that living wage over the next few years should be $15 an hour. And I want to tell all of you, although I don't have to tell the trade unionists who are with us today, about how real change comes about. If we were here 3-4 years ago talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, people would say, well, that's wildly unrealistic. You can't do it. But you know what happened? In hundreds of cities all over this country, fast food workers, low-wage workers went out on the street. And I've had the honor of marching with them. And they said loudly and clearly, no, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. We can't make it on $8 an hour. We can't make it on $9 an hour. And then something began to happen. Millions of other people say, you know, these guys are right. I can't make it on $10 an hour. We need to raise the minimum wage. And you had Seattle, and you had Los Angeles, and you had cities all over the country doing the right thing. that is how change happens. When millions of people stand up and they say enough is enough. Not just raising the minimum wage to a living wage. When we talk about wages in America, we must fight for pay equity for women workers. There is no rational economic reason why women make 78 cents on the dollar compared to men. And when we raise the minimum wage and when we have pay equity for women workers, we are going to enable millions of women in this country finally to be able to raise their children with dignity and security. And that's what we have to do. When we talk about the issues facing America, all of us have got to understand that there is one major nation on earth, one, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right, and you are living in it, and together we are going to end that international embarrassment. People in a country uninsured, more underinsured. Thousands die each year because they don't get to a doctor or to a nurse when they should. Only major country that does not say that health care is a right, not a privilege. So I don't really care what the private insurance companies think. I don't care what the pharmaceutical industry, the drug companies who are charging us the highest prices in the world for the medicine our people need. I don't care what they think. We are going to join the rest of the world, guarantee health care to all of our people as a right. Criticized, surprised by the Wall Street Journal. Can you believe it? Rupert Murdoch and his friends just don't like some of my ideas. I broke my heart. What can you do about it? But when we talk about another issue of huge consequence, and that is education. It is enormously troubling that we have millions of people in this country who are burdened, heavily burdened, by outrageously high student debt and high interest rates on that student debt. So the legislation that we have introduced does two very important things. First, As I mentioned, it makes every public college and university in America tuition free. I want you all to appreciate what that means, because it means more than saying, well, that's great, kids are not going to have to pay an outrageous amount of money to go to school. That's true, but it's something even deeper, much deeper. In New York City, there are kids in the 4th grade and in the 6th grade. And I grew up in Brooklyn. My parents, my mom and my dad, they never went to college. The truth is, the people they associated with never went to college. So you got kids all over this city right now who don't know anybody who has gone to college. And the idea of going to college is no different than going to Mars. It's just not something in their mindset. What we have got to tell those children is that if they study hard, if they take school seriously, they will be able to go to college, they will be able to make it to the middle class, regardless of their income. Wall Street Journal and others have pointed out that this proposal is expensive, and they're right, it is. It's about $70 billion a year to provide free tuition at public colleges and universities, and substantially reduce student debt. How are we going to pay for it? Well, I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. In 2008, the working families of this country bailed out the crooks on Wall Street. And now we're going to ask them to pay a tax on Wall Street speculation and help us fund higher education in America. By the way, when we talk about Wall Street, you capsulized it very well. What we have to understand is that when you have a handful of financial institutions, the top 6 have assets equivalent to 60% of the GDP in this country. And some of you may know this and some of you may not. But the largest banks today are significantly larger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. True. So what we've got to do, I think, is 2 things. Number 1, we have to bring back Glass-Steagall legislation. You should know that when I was in the House, I fought as hard as I could against both Republicans and Democrats who came together to deregulate Wall Street. But second of all, even more importantly, when you have institutions of this incredible size and power, I can tell you that if Teddy Roosevelt were alive today, he would break them up and he would be doing the right thing. He's going to break them up. When we talk about our responsibilities as adults, as inhabitants of this planet, we have the moral responsibility to make certain that this planet, the only planet we have, that we leave it to our children and grandchildren in a way that is habitable. The debate is over. The scientific community is virtually unanimous in telling us that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and what they're also telling us, that today in America and all over the world, climate change is causing devastating problems which will only get worse in years to come. That's the simple truth. And what they're saying, if we do not get our act together, this planet, by the end of the century, could be between 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer, more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, more rising sea levels. And what the CIA tells us is when people around the world do not have water to drink, when they do not have land to grow their crops, of course there will be more international conflict and wars. Now that's the bad news. Here's the good news. We have the knowledge and we have the technology. If we are prepared to work with China and Russia and India and countries all over this world, our country can lead the world in transforming our energy system. Let me conclude by making 2 points. First point, what I beg of you is do not develop this worldview which is pushed on you every day on radio and television and the newspapers to think small. I beg of you, think big, not small. Don't get involved in the debate about whether we cut education by 2%, that's the liberal position, or 4%, that's the conservative position. Understand that we are not a poor country. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We have extraordinary brain power, we have extraordinary technology, and when we develop the political will, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Ideas that I am talking about in this campaign, they're not pie in the sky, they're not utopian, they're not guaranteeing everybody's going to live for hundreds of years and not get sick. We're talking about stuff that is already going on in other countries around the world. Don't tell me that in America we cannot guarantee health care to all people in a cost-effective way. Don't tell me that we have to be the only major country on earth that doesn't provide family and medical leave to its workers. Don't tell me that we can't do as Germany and Scandinavia does, and that is to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Don't tell me that we need to have grotesque levels of inequality, proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, while we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. Doesn't have to do. We can, I love you too. We can accomplish all of that and more when we are prepared, and this is the hard part, when we are prepared to stand together and take on a billionaire class whose greed is destroying our country. They could care less about children in America going hungry. They want more and more tax breaks for themselves. They could care less about workers not having jobs if they can make a nickel more by shutting down a plant and moving to China. That's who they are. Now, the bad news is they got a whole lot of money and they own much of the media. That's true. But the good news is a lot more of us than there are of them. This campaign is not just electing Bernie Sanders for president. I would appreciate that too. But this campaign is deeper than that, because I will tell you what no other candidate for president ever says. And that is, no matter who the president is, whether it's Bernie Sanders or anybody else, that president alone, and that's a lesson I think it took Barack Obama a few years to learn, that president cannot alone take on Wall Street, corporate America, large campaign contributors. The only way we transform this country is when millions of people get actively involved in a political revolution. Welcome to the revolution.